Welcome back to the Cyber Spotlight, everybody. I'm Stephen Boughton, the host, and I'm joined today by Liz Tluchowski, who is CIO and CISO at World Insurance Associates. Hi, Liz. How are you doing?
Hi, Stephen. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very good.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining the show. I'm excited to get into a little bit more about you and how you got into cybersecurity and some of your thoughts on cybersecurity in your guys' line of business. But first, let's just get into who you are, kind of where you're from, and I guess what first got you into cybersecurity.
Okay, and thank you for having me, Stephen. This is really fun. So again, my name is Liz Tluchowski. I am the CIO and CISO here at World Insurance Associates, headquartered in New Jersey, actually Edison, New Jersey. I've been with the company for 4 years. I live locally to this office here for 4 years, but in the CIO and CISO roles for several years at different companies. Came over here to World Insurance after my CFO that I worked for at a prior company was a part of this business. He still is. He's our CEO, Richard Nguyen. He called me up and said, we need a CIO and CISO here at World. And I took the leap and have been thrilled ever since.
Awesome. That's great. And if you had to explain your job to somebody in an elevator who's maybe a little bit pesky and you only had the 30 seconds to say what you do at World, what would your response be?
Well, I would say 100% I'm the person responsible for helping to protect the organization, systems and data. You know, it basically is the individual who puts the thought into the measures that we put into place to help with that protection, both technical, training, whatever's needed to help with that initiative. And that's exactly what I would say.
Yeah. I'm sure that would make sense to them. What would you say the biggest misconception is that someone on the business side of the house might have about your role in cybersecurity?
Oh, I would say definitely that IT controls the company rather than the company, you know, going to IT looking for measures and systems to put into place. I think that that's really important. I think that we're labeled with, we say no a lot to things that we think would be, you know, detrimental in terms of security. And I'm talking specifically security, Stephen. Also that everything can be fixed in 10 minutes.
Fair enough.
I think it's so true. You know, are we back up? You know, what happened? Are we fixed? I think a lot of people have that idea that, you know, you can just fix everything really quickly. And that potentially is an inventory of the spare computers that you can just deploy when something breaks.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about IT in general, but yeah, those are definitely a few of the security specific ones. Since COVID started, has there been any changes to how your job functions or things at World function in general?
Yes, I think that although, you know, we're all back here in the office, you know, we definitely recognize the need for additional training for the end users, you know, educating them more on what to look for in their computing environments, you know, we were home for about a year. And, you know, we recognize that, okay, we're sharing computers, you know, what does that look like? Monitoring a lot more than we had in the past, running a lot more phishing tests, you know, to make sure that people are staying aware, even though they're home. And, you know, everybody was struggling certainly with their own personal issues as well in terms of, you know, nobody was happy. What are we facing? But I would say definitely out there reminding people that even though you're home, we still are in a company network and we need to treat it as it's a company network. And also, you know, printing, you know, the idea that, okay, I'm home now and I have to print it to work on it was a kind of a workflow change. So we monitored that a lot closely as well.
Yeah, fair enough. That's those are like common challenges we hear about, and it's definitely they were big things. But glad you guys are back at the office now. Sounds like that's going great. What would you tell someone who aspires to get into like a CIO or a CISO role, maybe if they're younger, junior, just starting in their career? Like, what would be some advice you'd give them to help them end up where you are?
Well, the first piece of advice, and I laugh when I say it, is I hope you do not require a lot of sleep because you really do, you know, in terms of looking out, you know, in the industry and just in the world and understanding what are threats are and how they can impact an organization, is definitely a lot to, have on your mind. And I say that as a joke, Stephen, but I really do mean it. Educate, educate, educate. Find out everything that you can. I mean, when I was a CIO for years, but when I segued into the CISO role, it was more about the need as the world changes.
Right.
What the New York Department of Financial Services was requiring, what the GDPR was requiring. And it was a lot to say, wow, this is real. And the more education that you get to understand what that means and the impact that it could bring to an organization, I think that it is critical. And most important of all is love what you do, because some days are going to be very challenging. And, having that passion for it definitely helps that. It also helps with the lack of sleep and love who you do it for. Work for a company that supports you, work for a company that believes in you and really understands that they hired you for your expertise and that they really respect that you are giving them the right guidance.
Yeah, that's all great advice. Plurilock, we're an identity-centric company, as you know. And I'm just wondering, how does identity play into your vision of cybersecurity at large?
Well, I think that it is critical. And in an organization like World Insurance, where we are spread out nationally, and you go back, we maintain many of our offices that we purchased, so we could be running close to 150 different locations. It's difficult to get your arms around, what's going on in these offices. So I think identity management is genius at this point. I mean, we're excited here at World because we have recently started to engage in that option. I think that just understanding, where people are logging in from, what they have access to, and since we're not international yet, if we see somebody who's logging in from China, that would raise a red flag for us. Having that solution, I think, is going to be an incredible asset, to us and to any organization in this day and age.
Totally. Yeah, we obviously couldn't agree more. So that's great. So with World Security, we were chatting, or World Insurance, we were chatting a little bit before at how you guys are a acquiring agency. So you guys are always growing and doing a lot of growth through acquisition. And I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts, if you could give some of your thoughts and your best kind of practices or the strategy you've implemented, what to integrate congruent security practices like throughout those acquisitions to, obviously you probably want everyone on the same page with that and it to be consistent throughout the organization. So yeah, just talk a little bit about that and what kind of some of your strategies that you've used.
Oh, absolutely, Stephen. So security is key. We always tell people when we acquire and we have an opportunity to speak with them before the actual sale takes place, that we are extremely security driven. That is the one area from an IT perspective that we are not negotiable. So we, will change platforms after sale almost immediately. And that might include, changing out firewall switches, key components to the core portion of the network so that we have the visibility into these networks that we're now responsible for managing and maintaining. We're also responsible for the data the minute of sale. Again, we have a lot of requirements with New York Department of Financial Services cyber regulations. So we're spinning their infrastructure and policies into ours within the first 30 days from a security perspective, and then 90 in other areas, aspects of technology that are not as critical, but still need to be changed. So again, that is we're very aggressive there. And, I have an incredible team that sits behind that we work diligently. We can do 5 acquisitions a month, but regardless of what that looks like, security is first, and that integration process happens very quickly.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like it sounds like a strong position to take with that, and obviously the needed one. As we talked about earlier, it's security is like critical to the function of the business. Obviously, have you had any challenges with, if you're acquiring a different agency that has, you know, quite a number of staff. Like, do you have any challenges on your guys' side with getting the actual employees to get on board with your guys' security practices? Or do you kind of make sure that, or do you leave that to the agency side to enforce that, or do you guys monitor that on your own side? Like, is there any challenges to actually getting buy-in from the new employees kind of in the company?
Yes, I think there's challenges because we're changing the way they've operated from, in most cases, you know, some of the companies that we're acquiring may have had a position in security, depending typically on the size, whether or not they deal with PHI, you know, it just depends on the dynamics. I think that once we sit with them and explain to them, you know, why this is important, how important it is to just us as a whole in an organization, they understand it. You know, I think that that's probably one of the areas that is a very large difference for them, you know, from blocking websites to email encryption requirements, whatever that looks like, Stephen. But I think that everybody who's just looking at the news these days knows that, hey, you know, every company is a target. It doesn't matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact on world would be, you know, detrimental, like any organization, if something were to happen. So, you know, I also have the support 100% by, you know, the executive team. Again, you know, our CEO, Richard Noyen, and our director of mergers and acquisitions, Phil Nisbet, who were both two of the original founding partners. Having that support means everything, because even though a lot of times people may not understand certain things, they are relying on your expertise to, like I said earlier, guide them. And, you know, people eventually understand that, hey, you know, people are upset when their email goes down for an hour, you know, the impact that, you know, we would face if it was, you know, a compromise. That's how we essentially explain it to people. That, you know, it's not a matter of the 10-minute solution we talked about earlier. There's no such thing. That, you know, it would take a long time. So for the most part, you know, we're very fortunate with explaining that and getting the cooperation.
Well, that sounds great, Liz, and it's awesome that you have, like you said, buy-in from the leaders of your organization, because I've heard from other CISOs and you know, cybersecurity practitioners that being able to translate the value of the practices that you want to implement, or the things you want to buy, or, you know, policies you want to implement, if they can't understand why you're doing this, then they might not buy in, right? But if you're able to do that, it sounds like you have, then your job's going to be a lot easier in that sense, it seems. So that's good.
It definitely is, Stephen. And again, one of the reasons I think that sets this company apart from many, you know, to your point of people that I hear, you know, people don't get it, they don't understand. And that's one thing I've never had to say, and I'm very fortunate for that.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Before I let you go here, I got some just a little this or that questionnaire so people can learn a little bit more about Liz, the person. Are you a dog or a cat person, or other, or both?
You know what? I'll say dog.
Dog person, right on. Are you fonder of a Mac or PC?
PC.
PC. Do you have this is putting you on the spot big time. Do you have a best cybersecurity joke, like a cheesy joke that you tell everyone, or are you just steer clear from that?
Not a joke. I have a lot of like taglines, sayings at the end of emails, reminding people not to click, you know, but I think they're probably pretty common, Stephen. I tend not to joke about cyber.
That's a
Remember, I tend not to joke about it, which is the truth. But, you know, we have our little sayings along the way that, you know, we remind people, you know, the bad guys only have to get it right once. We have to get it right every time. But other than that, I'd say it's a very serious subject.
That's a great point. Maybe I should take that question out, because it is definitely not a joking matter.
I knew you were going to ask it. I would have come up with one.
Fair enough. Are you more of a sitting desk or a standing desk person?
I could tell you that I do a lot of sitting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, a lot.
Fair enough.
Yes.
I think a lot of people do that, especially at work. What is your favorite outdoor activity?
Oh, well, for the longest time, it was running.
And I guess last question, as the world's hopefully opening back up and international travel is going, what is the next travel destination on your bucket list?
So I really wanted to. Oh, it has to be an island, maybe I love Aruba, maybe try out Bora Bora.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah,
That's a bit of a hike.
but more realistically, probably closer to home like Aruba or even Turks and Caicos.
Oh yeah, on the East Coast there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Liz, well, thanks for being on the show on Cyber Spotlight. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on, sharing
Thank
some
you
of
for
your wisdom.
having me. It was fun. Thank you so much.
Of course. And where can people who are watching this show, where could they connect with you if they want to, learn more about World Insurance or learn how, you speak
Sure.
at their whatever, or just connect with you in general?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn and be happy to, connect with anybody that was interested in the same.
Okay, sounds good. We'll leave the link to your
Thank,
LinkedIn below the video. Thank you guys for watching Cyber Spotlight. This has been another episode, and we will see you next time here on the show. Thanks, Liz.
thank you. Bye-bye.